about to piss off a lot of people. Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today. Okay, so I literally just decided to turn on the camera and shoot this on a whim because this is something that I have been thinking about for a very long time, this video, and it's something that it's gonna be controversial, it's gonna offend a lot of people, but I am just gonna have to speak my truth. And okay, so I'm not here to offend anybody and I'm not here to put anybody down on purpose. But I think it's gonna happen anyway. And if it does offend you, well look, sorry, but also not sorry, because it's the truth. It is what it is, and it's a bit of a touchy subject, and well, whatever. So the topic is spirituality and veganism. Can you be a spiritual person without being vegan? Yeah, of course. You can be a good person. You can have a good heart. You can mean well. There's, doesn't mean that you're an asshole, okay? But to me personally, you cannot truly live a spiritual life in alignment with your highest potential and support an industry that tortures animals. Think about it. There's a reason why a lot of the Buddhist monks are vegetarian or vegan. There's a reason why a lot of you see a lot of the YouTubers who start the spiritual path and they always end up becoming vegan. Sometimes for some reason they end up going back to eating animals, and I'll talk about that in a minute and my theory about that. But to me, it just makes sense. When you start healing, when you start getting in alignment with who you really are, and you start shedding the programming of the matrix, what ends up happening is you start seeing the reality of things. And I don't know if anyone has ever heard this, but when you have a spiritual awakening, a lot of people think it's like, no. No, it's more like realizing that this world is so fucked up and that you're in hell, and it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. So I basically became vegan because I started to do some research. I started to really look into it. I started following people who were vegan because, of course, like everybody else, my fear was I'm not going to get enough protein. I'm not going to get enough this. I'm not going to get enough that. And, whatever it is that we tell ourselves. But once I really started to do the research and looking into different types of foods and what they have in them and what type of vegetable has what vitamins and minerals, I realized you can get everything that you need without killing an animal. Also, this is going to be for another video. I actually have a history of eating disorders. So for me, it was actually, it helped me heal. You can think about it. Whenever I was eating, number one, being a spiritual person, I'm very sensitive to energies. I'm very sensitive to what I put in my body, what I put on my body. So when I was eating it, I was feeling guilty, like really guilty. And I've always been this way. Since I was a little girl, I've always wanted to be vegetarian. I always wanted to be vegan, but I grew up in a family, number one, my father worked in a slaughterhouse, okay? So he would come home and actually tell me the stories. Heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. Number two, I'm an animal empath. So I'm not saying that I can talk to an animal and they respond back, but what I'm saying is I can feel a level of connection with them, and I genuinely see the soul inside of them. I don't see myself any different to them. So to me, really, eating animal, it's like eating human. It sounds weird, it sounds fucked up, but that's the way I see it. That might be different for you, that's absolutely fine. But the problem is we have to really begin to understand how society is built. Now, we're not talking about the days where you had to hunt and gathering, you know what I mean? Where you had to hunt for your food, or where you're in a situation, where you're living in Antarctica, where you have no vegetables. We're talking about a place where we are abusing, using this Mother Earth animals to the point where when you start looking into it, it is absolutely terrifying. Not only that, but for those of you Christians, by the way, bless you if you're here on this channel, the whole idea of you know, if you kill a soul, then you're basically going to hell. Well, animals have souls. So, you know, we forget that and we just see them as objects. I mean, I even remember, I don't want to say who it is, but I remember a family member basically saying to me, it's like, you know, they don't feel any pain. If you've seen the footage that I have seen, who the are you kidding? Now listen, to me being spiritual is about living in alignment with my truth, with who I am. There's a reason why you cannot watch that footage. There's a reason why your soul churns, your stomach churns. There's a reason why you have this, you know, shock, these emotions that come up. And a lot of the time we're programmed not to listen to our emotions. Your emotions, by the way, are your compass. They're directing you towards what is right and what is wrong within you. So if you feels wrong, there's something wrong. You don't react like that when you eat a vegetable or a fruit. Could you imagine cutting the fruit and you're like, oh? No, we look at it and we enjoy it. I mean, sure, I've heard the theory as well that plants have feelings. I think they work slightly on a different level than animals, but that's a whole other debate that I'm not going to get into. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, honestly, if you see the footage, if you take the time to literally grow the balls to watch that footage and stop living in denial, and be as self-aware as possible as to how much you can have an impact on them. We are all connected, okay? And we're not just connected to each other as humans, we're connected to animals, we're connected to this earth. No one's perfect. I'm not perfect either, okay? I cannot sit here and say that I have the solution to everything, but something like the factory farming and the even like the fur industry, the dairy industry, the egg industry, when you look into it, it's absolutely terrifying. And to be quite honest, it is the closest thing in my mind to hell. You know, there are animals that get boiled alive. They get crushed. I mean, baby chicks get put through meat grinders. I mean, the most horrifying, horrific, terrifying, mind-fucking things are happening to them. So when we pay for these things, we allow that to continue. And I'm not sitting here and once again saying that you're a bad person, but once you start becoming aware of this, then you can realize that you have the power to change that. And it's not only that, like, most of my family and friends are not vegan. They're not vegetarian. Some of them are starting to turn because of me, which I'm so grateful for. I think partly is because they've seen that, number one, not only do I look better than ever physically, I actually am fairly fit. So I actually build muscle very easily. My eating disorder disappeared and I enjoy food for the first time in my life. I never had a good relationship with food until I became vegetarian and then I became vegan. By the way, I was vegetarian for, I don't even know how long. I think I was like 5 to 10 years. I mean, I'm seriously spitting numbers, at least 5 years, because my time frame is always a bit messed up. And then I became vegan the last 4 years, once I looked into it even more and really understood the difference between being a vegetarian and a vegan, how the dairy industry, basically it's like eating a cow, and the same thing with the egg industry. If you're eating an egg, it's just eating like chicken because, you know, but I have a family friend who owns chickens, and once in a while I'll have like an egg from her, but I know the chickens. I know they're happy. I know they're not going to be slaughtered, you know, so there's a big difference there. So going to the spiritual aspect of people, why is it that so many spiritual people start off going vegan and then they do a twist? Now, I might do some videos on that, some more videos on this, because it's a very interesting topic to me. But to be quite honest, I think what happens is honestly is ego. Now, you could even debate that I have an ego being vegan. Fair enough. And probably, you know, as long as you're human, you're going to have an ego. But pick your ego. Pick what you're proud about. Pick what you're arrogant about. Pick, by the way, the ego doesn't mean that you're arrogant. I'm just saying, if you think I'm arrogant about it, that's fine once again. But pick your battles, basically. This is what I'm trying to say. So I noticed that there was a trend, and usually what ends up happening is that the spiritual people who start off on the journey, they discover this thing and they become in alignment with spirit, and they really start transforming their life and start noticing the blessings coming into their life because they're on the right path. And of course, it's a natural next step where they go, oh, this makes sense. Like, I need to become vegan because I'm giving back and I'm doing the right thing. But what happens, like with anything, is that once you start becoming more and more powerful, once you start becoming more and more popular, once you start getting more and more followers, you cannot help but getting an identity around that, and your ego might grow and you might get a little bit of a God complex. Maybe some of them don't, but I think some of them might, a little bit, a tiny bit. So when you get into that place, you all of a sudden focus and shift all of your attention into, oh, but this is not a reality. It doesn't matter what we do here, and really it does. Maybe not to you, but to the animals it does. This is their world. Might not be yours, but this is their world. So it does impact them. Try and say that to a pig being slaughtered, or, it's like, sorry, mate, that's not your reality, mate. This is just the Matrix. It's not real. So I think what ends up happening is, unfortunately, there is a detachment that happens in a way. They get to a level where they don't connect anymore. And I don't blame them for that, but it just gets to a point where there's a little bit of entitlement, to be quite honest. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And it sucks sometimes being vegan because, when you're sitting at a table where everyone is eating animal and where that came from. And for me personally, I have the images of the slaughterhouses when that happens, and it's really painful. It's not enjoyable. And the people that are supposed to love me and care for me don't support me. At the same time, it's not my right to go, you cannot eat that, The only thing that I can do is set an example. If they ask me about it, I tell them what I think and how I feel and what I've seen. And also, I'm an example. Because many of them thought that by now I would be sick, but I'm always the person who's basically never sick and who's the fittest and who works the hardest. So, I have plenty of energy, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, it's just something to think about. It kind of just makes sense. We're here to have an impact, a positive impact on the world, on each other. And, if you really think about it, an evolved civilization, in my opinion, would learn and understand that they are part of an ecosystem, which is what we are. We're part of this ecosystem, and we're becoming a cancer to Earth. We're becoming a very big problem to this planet. And the animal souls are screaming for us to go. And I don't blame them. We need to wake up and really start taking accountability and responsibility for the things that we can. This generation more and more is born into a generation where everything was packaged, and they don't realize that this was once a pig, a fish, whatever. Speciesism is another thing. Why is it not okay for Korea to eat dogs, but it's okay for us to eat pigs, when we forget that pigs are 6 times smarter than dogs? It really makes no sense. If you can detach yourself and look at it from the bigger picture, look at it from your heart and not from your ego, not from the fear-based mentality, which is, it's many things. There's a lot to it when you become vegan, to tell you the truth. And to my fellow vegans out there, I love you. Thank you so much for waking up, for being the voice of the voiceless, for helping these beautiful creatures who have no choice. I am just so deeply grateful, because I'm gonna cry. My whole life I felt so alone, and I didn't think that anybody else saw the suffering and the pain and the souls, the beautiful souls that these creatures are. I am so grateful for those people out there, for those who are fighting for the animals. I used to, by the way, before I became vegan or vegetarian, I used to roll my eyes at all the vegans who would protest, who would go into places and I don't know, go to slaughterhouses and you know what the vegans do basically. And now I am so grateful for them. I love you, and I'm so grateful also for those of you who are opening your heart up to this idea, even if you just cut down or at least introduce 2 or 3 days a week without eating meat. It's a start. Try to be vegan, do your research. You know, I was so uneducated on food before I became vegan. And then I started to look into the vitamins and the minerals that are in different foods, and I started to understand what I was putting into my body. And remember, what we eat is medicine. There is a lot of fear around it, and it's not true. If you follow me on Instagram or whatever, you see my workouts. I'm not here to say that I have the most amazing body or anything like that. That's not what I do. It's just to show you that you can be strong and still be vegan. And there's a ton of vegan people out there who are jacked, okay? I mean, it's amazing what people are doing. And anyway, the point is, I just wanted to encourage you today to start thinking about what you can do and how you can support Mother Earth and how you can support the animals. If you have a dog or a pet that you really love, know that there is absolutely no difference between them and the cows and the chickens and the pigs. We are brainwashed to think that there is, but there isn't. I encourage you maybe to start looking at videos of how smart these animals are, how they create bonds and relationships. And if it does bother you, if it does affect you, if there's something in you that even is a slight wrong, do something about it. You have the power to change that. Only you. And yes, it's going to be challenging. And yes, you're going to make mistakes. But when you get there, when you really see the truth, I promise you, it's the best thing you'll ever do. My whole channel is about self-empowerment and being authentic and finding and discovering who you really are. And I know there's many of you out there who know that this is a calling and that you just need maybe somebody to push you a little more. All right, so I hope this was this made sense when I edit it, if I edit it. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for watching. Thank you so much for being a part of the meditation channel, for taking on the healing journey. I love you, and that's it, really. Okay, bye.